You wake up, go through the motions, smile when you're supposed to, speak when it's appropriate, and say you're fine when asked. There's a script, and you've memorized it well. But behind your eyes, there is a quiet ache. A vague unrest that doesn't have a name, only a weight. Have you ever wondered why, despite doing everything right, you still feel like something is missing? Like you're a stranger living inside your own skin. You've crafted a version of yourself the world can accept, but not the one you can live with. And that's where it begins. The fracture, the quiet decay of the false self you've worn for too long. Healing doesn't begin with light. It begins with death. Carl Jung once said, "There is no coming to consciousness without pain." That pain, more often than not, comes from shedding who we thought we had to be. We were taught to become palatable, to be nice, to be wanted. But each time we shaped ourselves to fit into someone else's mold, we abandoned a part of who we truly are. And so, like a tree forced to grow around a wall, we bent, twisted, adapted, but never truly thrived. You say you want to heal, but what you often mean is you want to feel better without losing anything. You want to keep your masks, your coping, your comfort zones, and simply erase the ache. But healing doesn't work like that. Healing requires subtraction before addition, destruction before reconstruction. You will have to let parts of you die. The part that smiles to survive. The part that stays silent to avoid conflict. The part that performs worthiness because deep down, you never felt you had any. Death, in this sense, is not an ending. It's a brutal mercy. The death of the persona. The unraveling of the mask. It is terrifying, yes. But what if fear is the threshold? What if every part of you that's been screaming for peace is actually begging for you to stop pretending? Carl Jung spoke of the shadow, the hidden, suppressed aspects of ourselves. Healing is not about casting it out. It's about integration. But you cannot integrate what you refuse to acknowledge. You cannot hold hands with a ghost you keep denying exists. So the illusion of wholeness, the one you show the world, must be broken. You must stop performing your own perfection. Let the mask rot. Let it burn. Only then can the true self begin to emerge from beneath the rubble. This death will not be glamorous. No one will clap. There are no trophies for becoming real. But in that silent funeral of who you were pretending to be, you will finally begin to breathe. They said you were kind, so you gave more. They said you were dependable, so you carried more. They said you were strong, so you suffered silently, and little by little their praise became your prison. You became who they needed, not out of choice, but survival. Because being needed felt close enough to being loved. Because saying yes was safer than saying no. Because disappearing into others felt easier than being rejected for being yourself. But now you're tired, aren't you? Not physically, existentially. Deep, bone-level exhaustion. The kind that doesn't go away with sleep, because you've been awake in everyone else's life, but asleep in your own. So the question is no longer, what do they want from me? The question is, what has it cost me to give it to them? Carl Jung wrote of the persona, the social mask we present to the world. It's not inherently evil. It helps us navigate society. But the danger lies in over-identification. When the mask is no longer something you wear, but something you become. You forget what your face looked like before you wore it. And this is what happens when you become who they need. You become everyone's solution, everyone's safety net, everyone's emotional landfill. You carry their wounds, their projections, their chaos, and in doing so, you misplace your own soul. People don't just use you, they get addicted to the version of you that costs you everything and them nothing. And the tragedy is this: you taught them to. With every yes you didn't mean, with every boundary you swallowed, with every silence you allowed. But how could you not, when the child in you learned that love is earned through utility, that presence is secured through performance, that if you're not useful, you're disposable? So now, you're an adult with 1,000 responsibilities and not a single real connection. Because no one knows the real you, not even you. The healing begins when you ask, who am I beneath the obligation? It begins when you stop measuring your worth by the weight you carry. When you realize that being needed is not the same as being loved. When you accept that your exhaustion is not a weakness. It is a message, a scream, a rebellion from your buried self. And that rebellion is sacred. Because within that defiance is your first breath as a free being. They will call you selfish, cold, unrecognizable. Let them. They are grieving the version of you that served them. They are mourning the mask. But you are being born. This is not the end of your relationships. It is the end of your performance. And in the next chapter we ask, what if your anger was never the enemy, but the invitation? Have you ever felt it? That sudden heat in your chest, that quickened breath, the tremble in your hands, the rise of something wild, uncontainable, unapologetic. Anger, the emotion you were taught to fear, to suppress, to swallow. Because anger made you difficult. Anger made you ungrateful. Anger made you too much. So you buried it, deep. But now it leaks. Through clenched jaws, through silence, through resentment dressed as politeness. What if your anger isn't a flaw? What if it's a compass? Have you ever felt it? That sudden heat in your chest, that quickened breath, the tremble in your hands, the rise of something wild, uncontainable, unapologetic. Anger, the emotion you were taught to fear, to suppress, to swallow. Because anger made you difficult. Anger made you ungrateful. Anger made you too much. So you buried it, deep. But now it leaks. Through clenched jaws, through silence, through resentment dressed as politeness. What if your anger isn't a flaw? What if it's a compass? Carl Jung believed that emotions, especially the ones we disown, are messengers from the unconscious. Anger is not chaos, it is clarity. It tells you where your boundaries were crossed, where your truth was ignored, where your soul was silenced. But we were taught to fear anger, especially if you were the quiet one, the peacemaker, the good one. You learned to smile while being disrespected, to laugh off the insults, to explain away mistreatment. But beneath that calm surface, a storm has been building. And maybe, just maybe, that storm is not your undoing, but your becoming. Because anger, when met with awareness, is not destruction. It is direction. It shows you what matters, what hurts, what you will no longer tolerate. The problem is not your anger. The problem is that you were never taught how to hold it without turning it inward. So you hurt yourself instead of setting boundaries. You disappeared instead of saying enough. You shrank instead of standing tall. But your body remembers, and now it's screaming. Anger is not a fire to be extinguished. It is a fire to be understood. It is the guardian of your sacred spaces. It is the voice of the self you buried to keep the peace. And now it's time to listen. You are not unkind because you're angry. You are not broken because you're raging. You are not dangerous because you've stopped pretending. You are awakening. So the next time you feel the fire rise in your chest, don't apologize. Pause. Listen. Ask it. What truth are you trying to tell me? Because maybe, just maybe, your anger isn't the enemy. Maybe it's the part of you that never stopped believing you deserve more. In the next chapter, we go deeper. What happens when silence is no longer protection, but prison? You were told silence is strength, that not reacting makes you wise, that biting your tongue is maturity. But they never told you silence could also be a slow death. Not the peaceful kind, the suffocating kind, where every word unspoken becomes a knot in your throat. Every truth withheld becomes a weight on your chest. Every moment you swallow your voice, a piece of you disappears. You call it peace. But it's not. It's self-abandonment wearing a calm face. There is a difference between silence and suppression. Silence, when chosen, is sacred. Suppression, when forced, is violence. Carl Jung taught that what you repress doesn't disappear. It returns, distorted, in dreams, in illness, in misplaced rage, in the ache you can't name. Because your truth doesn't die just because you hide it. It waits, it festers, and eventually it turns on you. You tell yourself you're keeping the peace, but the peace you're keeping is for them, not for you. Because real peace is not the absence of noise, it's the presence of truth. You've made yourself small to avoid conflict. You've stayed quiet to be liked. You've tolerated to feel safe. But safety built on silence is a cage, and you are too alive to stay locked in it. Every time you silence yourself, you teach your nervous system that your voice is dangerous, that your truth is a threat, that your authenticity is a liability. And the more you do this, the more lost you become in your own life. Until one day you look around and realize you've built a world where everyone's comfortable except you. Healing requires the courage to disrupt, to disappoint, to disturb the false peace that is costing you your soul. Carl Jung said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." But how can you become that if you keep silencing the part of you that's trying to speak? There's a voice inside you, small but steady. It says, "This isn't right." It says, "I want more." It says, "I deserve to be heard." Stop shushing it. Start listening. They may not like your truth. They may reject your voice. They may call you dramatic, selfish, rebellious. Let them. You've betrayed yourself long enough. Your silence is no longer protection. It is prison. And the only way out is to speak. In the next chapter, we ask, what does it really mean to be reborn? Not just healed, but transformed. You've burned the mask. You've spoken the truth. You've let the rage move through you like a sacred storm. Now comes the quiet, but not the suffocating silence from before. This is a silence that holds space, that breathes, that listens. This is the space after death, where something new begins. Not a better version of the old you. A new one. Not improvement, but transformation. Not healing as a return, but healing as a resurrection. Carl Jung believed that individuation, the process of becoming whole, is not about fixing. It is about uncovering, unlayering, dying into your truth. You are not here to return to who you were before the wound. You are here to become who you were meant to be because of it. And this is where most people stop, because they want healing to be a rewind button, to go back, to pretend nothing happened. But healing is not a circle, it is a spiral. You do not go back, you go deeper. You meet yourself at new layers. You shed not to reveal the old you, but to birth a truer one. Rebirth is not gentle, it is violent with grace. It comes with grief for all the versions of you that could not stay. It comes with fear because you are stepping into a life where no map exists. It comes with loss because some people only loved the mask. But it also comes with peace, a peace that no longer depends on approval, a peace that sits in your bones, that doesn't need to shout, that simply is. To be reborn is to finally realize you were never meant to fit in. You were meant to become. Your softness is no longer weakness, it is sacred. Your anger is no longer shameful, it is signal. Your silence is no longer self-abandonment, it is choice. This is you now, not perfect but whole, not fearless, but free. Carl Jung wrote, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." And you have faced your shadows. You have walked through the fire, and though it burned, it did not destroy you. It revealed you. So this is not the end. This is the beginning. You are not who you were. You are not who they said you had to be. You are not even who you thought you were. You are the one who chose to die, so you could finally live. This is your rebirth. Not soft, not pretty, but real. And now you rise.